Well, when I first became a manager, I didn't really understand what leadership was. I actually, if I'm honest, was probably more of an individual contributor who had a manager title. And I had to learn the hard way that that isn't how leaders should be. Well, you can work really hard, but if you're not getting your accomplishments and results in front of other people for them to see, well, they may not recognize that you're ready for that next step. Most people are struggling with a lot of limiting beliefs in their head, old stories, people who maybe they haven't connected with enough to show their leadership to them. And so it just keeps them in this background role. Leadership isn't complete without understanding who you are as a leader and having that foundation to stand on, whether that's your values or your priorities or how you want to show up as a leader, because people won't follow you if you don't know who you are as a leader. They think that they're doing all the right things, but they're actually keeping themselves small where they could be bigger. Don't rely on other people because you cannot be sure that they're actually doing it for you. And ultimately that could hurt you, could hurt your brand and your perception. That your voice matters, that you belong at the table, that you have something important to share, that you have unique qualities that are all yours, that people need to know, and you need to share them with them.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Legacy, a podcast where we explore journeys of leadership beyond titles, beyond boardrooms, and into the deeper impact leaders leave behind. I'm your host, Poonam Garg. In each episode, I sit down with the remarkable leaders whose journeys shaped organization, influenced people, and created meaningful impact beyond their formal roles. Today, I am delighted to welcome Susan M Barber. Suzanne is a leadership visibility strategist who partners with organizations to develop trusted leaders who are ready for enterprise level impact. Before launching her advisory work, she worked as a Fortune 500 IT director leading global teams and large scale transformations initiatives. Today, she helps leaders strengthen executive presence, communicate their value, and build the type of influence needed to grow into the leadership roles. She is also the author of the book, The Visibility Factor and Your Journey to Visibility Workbook. And she's the host of the Visibility Factor podcast, where she shares practical strategies on leadership, confidence, influence, and career growth. Suzanne, it's such a pleasure to have you here on Beyond the Legacy.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited for our conversation today.
So, Suzanne, I would love to go with your leadership journey first. So, you spent years leading global teams, right, as an IT director inside a Fortune 500 organization. Looking back, was there a moment that shaped how you think about leadership today?
Well, when I first became a manager, I didn't really understand what leadership was. I actually, if I'm honest, was probably more of an individual contributor who had a manager title. And I had to learn the hard way that that isn't how leaders should be. Leaders need to trust their people, delegate to them, and give them opportunities to learn and grow themselves. So I had these moments of thinking I'm doing the right thing and recognizing that there's a better way. And when I learned that, it was surprising in so many ways because I just didn't know what I didn't know. So when I work with people now, I really want them to understand that you can be a leader who is great, who does great things, who helps develop their teams through coaching and guiding. You don't have to tell them all the answers. You don't have to have all the answers either. It's a real freeing moment to recognize that and be able to empower people.
So, was there a point when you realized that strong performance alone is not always enough for leaders to be recognized or advanced?
I recognized it in myself, first of all, and then I was able to recognize it in others. I was brought up to work hard, have strong work ethic, do all the things, and I did all that. And it wasn't really making a difference. It wasn't moving me up high enough to where I wanted to go. And so I had to learn about the concept of visibility, which I know we'll talk about in greater detail. But it just says that you can work really hard, but if you're not getting your accomplishments and results in front of other people for them to see, well, they may not recognize that you're ready for that next step. So you have to be a little more strategic with where your time is spent and how you're doing things to make that happen. So that was my first lesson of, okay, working hard isn't enough. And then began to teach my team and then the people that I mentored. And now as a coach, I'm teaching all the people that I coach that there's a better way. You can do it in a much easier way, and you don't have to work hard, work a million hours to do it. And that ultimately won't get you there anyway.
Since you touched upon the visibility factor, let's jump into that. So your work focuses on the concept that resonates deeply with many professionals, which is visibility. So for listeners who may be new to this idea, how do you define the leadership visibility?
I see it as someone who is speaking about their value and impact in a bigger way. They are putting themselves in front of decision makers to show their leadership and that they're ready for the next step. They're developing their team. It's putting themselves out there where most people that I coach a lot of times think that they're doing all the right things. And I believe that too. They think that they're doing all the right things, but they're actually keeping themselves small where they could be bigger. They could be asking questions in meetings and presenting things and taking on bigger projects. But there's a bit of fear there that if they don't do well or they might make a mistake, then that's it for them. It's one and done. But that's not really true. It's more about how do you do it incrementally? You just do little things that help people start to see you differently, and you start to see yourself differently. This is about helping yourself be more confident and show up in a bigger way.
So on that note, so why do so many talented and high performing leaders struggles to make their impact visible inside organization?
Well, sometimes it's other things that have happened to them in the past. So someone might have said to them, I don't think you're ready for a promotion. So they're living with that old story. Someone might have said, I think you need to do these 3 things and then you'll be ready. And then they do those 3 things and then there's 3 more things. They never get to a point where they actually are doing it. So most people are struggling with a lot of limiting beliefs in their head, old stories, people who maybe they haven't connected with enough to show their leadership to them. And so it just keeps them in this background role. And instead of doing that, what I'm trying to get them to see is let's reframe those things, right? Those are things that may have happened in the past. They're not happening now. So how can we start to have you show up differently now? And I call it like going into a playground, right? Where they get to do whatever they want to do. They get to try things out. They get to be bolder. They get to say things that they wouldn't ordinarily say. And the goal is to teach them, first of all, that they can do this. And then once they start to see that, that actually worked. Okay, let's try something else. Then they're more open to change and showing up in a bigger way for people.
Yeah, so the question that you said, like somebody can say like you are not ready for promo, you need to do those 3 things. Does that mean like they are trying to advocate about you? They are trying to sponsor you? What that mean is?
Well,
How
I
do
think they're trying to help the person by saying you need to be doing, let's use some examples that are concrete. You need more executive presence. You need to be influencing more. You need to be developing your team in a bigger way and getting them in front of leadership. Those are 3 concrete things, right, that they can do, but they're pretty big. And so people struggle with, okay, where do I even start? And so that's where I try to break it down for them and help them understand what kind of actions you can take that are visible actions, that are bold, that are trying something different than they've seen from you in the past. And now they can start to see that you are ready for this. It takes a little time, right? It doesn't happen overnight. But I think that's what sometimes happen is that managers may, I'll say, put the carrot out there. If you do these 3 things, then you can get promoted. But if someone's doing those 3 things and they still don't get promoted, then they're struggling with, okay, now what do I have to do? And I think it's sometimes, I believe in honesty and transparency. So if you're a leader of someone who's working for you and you don't believe that they're ready and you don't believe that they have the capability to be ready, even if they do all the things, then you need to tell them that. You need to be honest with them because otherwise people are kind of trying to kill themselves to get all the things done. And you ultimately have no intention of promoting them. And maybe they're a better fit for something else that you could help them with, right? So it's not just, I don't like to string people along. I'd much rather that they know the truth. And if you do these things and I'm going to support you, great. If you want them to do these things and you're not going to support them, then you have to tell them that.
Yeah. So in our conversation, you kind of brought the good point. Like that is my next segment is getting the influence and executive presence, right? So organization nowadays today often talk about executive presence and influence. So from your experience working with leaders, what qualities help someone build real influence inside an organization?
Well, I think it starts with credibility, first of all, where you are doing what you say you're going to do. You're demonstrating that you show up for things, that you're interested, that you take initiative. And then as you progress in your career, it kind of moves up more up till relationships. So what kind of relationships do you have? How are you connecting with other people in the organization to get things done? How are you influencing others on your ideas or things that you want to move forward? And then the last phase is more in the senior leadership area, which is strategic communication. How are you influencing not only your team, but the rest of the organization to do things? How are you helping people hear the messaging that they need to hear so they can see the value that you want to do and help you, right? Support you to do that. So there's kind of that little flow, I'd say, that happens for people as they continue to grow in their careers. They gain more of those skills. They don't let go of credibility. They don't let go of relationships when they get to the higher level. It's just all of those things together help you create more influence.
So how can leader communicate their value without feeling like they are simply self-promoting?
Yes,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people hold themselves back because they feel like it's bragging or self-promotion, right?
Yeah.
I just ask them to share facts and information. So, for example, I can go to my boss and say, I did these 3 reports for you, here they are. Or I can say to my boss, I did these 3 reports. I also put together some additional recommendations and some analysis that I think might be helpful as you're having your conversations with your boss about blah, blah, blah thing. So it's taking what you're doing instead of just telling, I call it, you're telling them you did something. Now you're showing them that you did something else that's highly valuable, more impactful, shows you're connected to the business, shows that you're thinking bigger. And that's the part I think a lot of people leave out. So imagine you're in a one-on-one situation. Most people just do, I call it a grocery list. I did this, I did this, I did this. Instead of talking about 3 things that are really important where you made a difference, you influenced a decision, you negotiated something, you saved money, you fixed a process. Talking about those things, because those are things that matter in the big scheme of the business, right? Making things better. But we tend to minimize those and just say, it's just part of my job. It's no big deal. And I want you to think of them as a big deal. Like they're bigger than you're giving yourself credit for. And those are things that are going to get you recognition that you're doing more than others. And you just don't realize that.
So for leaders who want to grow into senior executive roles, so what mindset shift is most important for them?
Well, they have to see themselves as an equal with those people right now, right? You can't wait till you get there and start to see that you're ready for it. You have to start believing, and I'm a believer that you can have this at any level. It's not when you're up at the higher levels. But if you imagine yourself being an equal with someone who's at a higher level, then you start talking differently. Your confidence is different. You show up differently because in your mind, I'm just a peer with this person, right? And that person can feel that from you. They can feel that you're confident, that you are comfortable having a different conversation than maybe they have with someone else. So you have to start believing that you belong at that level. So I have an example. I have a person who, the very first time I coached her, I said, what do you want to do? Like, what's your ultimate plan for your career? She said, I want to be a VP. I said, well, let's start working on that right now. Not wait until you want to be like a manager and then a senior manager and then a director, all those things. Let's start right now. And so changing her mindset that we could start working on that right now caused her to have different conversations with people, to present things in a different way that are more strategic, to prepare differently for the conversations and the objections she might get so that she's ready for all of that. Starting wherever you are right now and start behaving like you belong at that level helps people see you that way. So you don't want to wait until it's been given to you and then you try to figure out, okay, now what do I want to do? You can start right now.
And so behave the way where you want to go.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a good mindset shift. Yep. Now, my next segment is more about developing leaders and giving back to the community. So, a big part of your work, when I see it, focuses on helping organization developing leadership pipelines and retaining high performing talents, right? Which is every organization would like to do. So, what motivates your commitment to helping leaders grow and succeed?
What I have this is like a big mission for me for sure. I feel like there are so many talented leaders who may be quieter, maybe introverted, high achieving people who, for whatever reason, have been either told or feel like they can't speak up in a meeting, that they can't show more. And so just think about that. If we could get all of those people to start being more visible, to start sharing their ideas, to be more creative and innovative and talk about things that they would like to do, and then start acting upon those things, wouldn't it change the way that organization operates? And instead, we've got a lot of people who are quiet, sitting in the back of the room, not speaking up, not sharing ideas. It's just a limited way of thinking, I think, for companies to not want to have more people participating and being a part of the conversations in a bigger way, because we need ideas from a lot of different places, right? There's only so many ideas we can have on our own. And I think the group think can help bring new ideas to life, new ways of doing things, new products, new services. So I believe the more that we can inspire these people to start to speak up and help companies recognize that they have a lot to offer, it could change the game for what happens in a company.
Thank you. That's where my next question is. So, through your coaching, writing, and podcasting that you've been doing, and you are equipping the leaders with practical tools for growth. So, what feedback and stories from leaders have been most meaningful for you? Let's talk about that.
Oh, wow. There's so many. What's interesting is just watching over time how they start to believe in themselves now. That's one of the biggest pieces of feedback I get is you helped me believe in myself again. And so like there's a lot of things that people are carrying with them that they never talk about with anyone, probably until I spend time with them. They've never told anybody that they don't feel like they're good enough, smart enough, ready for the next step. And they may not even be able to articulate that to themselves until I ask them a question and then it comes out. But what's been fun is to see how they start that way, and then over time I kind of push them and play in the playground a little bit, right? Make them do things that are a little bolder, try some things out, just experiment, and they start to see something different in themselves. And then of course they sit up straighter, they stand taller, they start to acknowledge the fact that they're learning and growing, and that shows up to other people. So I've got a lot of people. I have one company that I worked with where they had multiple leaders in my program, and they were doing what I call a visibility partnership, which is they were helping each other get visibility in meetings and in conversations and talking about each other's successes. And all of them have been promoted at least once, and some in, I think, two of them twice since they were in that program, which was only 4 years ago. So it's really impressive to see how people really embrace this because they didn't know about it before and really lean into it and start to do more of it. And it shows up to other people. Their confidence grows. They're really excited and they believe that they can do whatever they want to now. And that's the goal. I want them to walk into any room and say, I belong here. And that's what they're doing.
So, for the listeners who resonates with your message, how can they connect with you or get involved into your work?
You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I have a newsletter on there. You can also follow me on Substack if you're a Substack reader. But also my website has all the information about the books and the podcast. You can connect with me there, and I would love to just have a conversation if there's something of interest that I spoke about today. But also you can just follow along, and as things come up, you can see if they're interesting for you to do at that point.
So now my next question is about leadership growth, and you have trained so many leaders. So overall, with your experience, what is the biggest internal barrier you see leaders facing when it comes to influence, confidence, and visibility?
The biggest one is confidence, right? Most people have been given bad feedback along the way, or it may be valid feedback, but they were not ready to hear it. They have internalized that story and it really causes them to lose their confidence. So I'll use myself as an example. At one point along the way, I was a top talent. I was doing all the right things, but I was the one sitting in the back of the room thinking I didn't need to do any more. I'm this top talent. I kind of got complacent. And I got feedback that said, Sue, you're not being visible enough. You need to do more. You need to be in front of the leadership team in a bigger way. You're hiding yourself and you're hiding your team. Well, that was really hard to hear because I had no idea that that had happened and that I was even doing that. So sometimes I think we don't realize that how we're showing up and that other people are witnessing that and making decisions about what we can do next or not do next. It creates a perception about our personal brand and where we want to go. So in that situation, it was hard to hear, but I was so grateful because it caused me to really look at myself and what I was doing and not doing. So in that case, I got myself a coach. She helped me realize that I was just doubting myself, unnecessarily, and that I could turn this around. And sometimes I think you need someone in your corner helping you see that you can reframe this, you can do something different, you can start taking different actions, and people will start to see it differently. So to me, confidence is one of the biggest ones, and it's probably the most difficult to shift unless you really can help them start to see that it's worth their while to do so.
Yeah, confidence is very much important. Regardless of whether you get visibility or influence, first you need to believe in yourself.
Right? Yes.
Right. So let's do a quick rapid fire round.
Okay.
So one word that describes your leadership journey.
Transformational.
Or the best career advice you ever received.
It's okay to ask for help.
A leadership habit that helped you most.
Reading books, listening to podcasts.
And a quality every future leader must develop.
I would say trust in yourself. That is something that took me a long time to realize. So if you can trust yourself, build your confidence, it allows you to do big things.
So now I'm going to give leadership isn't complete without blank. So what do you want to fill?
Ooh, that's a good question. Leadership isn't complete without understanding who you are as a leader and having that foundation to stand on, whether that's your values or your priorities or how you want to show up as a leader, because people won't follow you if you don't know who you are as a leader.
Suzanne, I would love to end with something a little more personal.
Okay.
You have spent years helping leaders understand their value and build the confidence to be seen and heard inside the organization. Looking back at your journey, was there ever a moment when you personally struggled with visibility or confidence in your career?
Yeah, I mean, the one I mentioned was definitely the biggest, I would say, but also even some other ones where I thought leaders were doing something or communicating something on my behalf, and I found out later that they weren't. And then I had a really tough conversation with a VP who said, why did you assume she was talking, and sharing this on your behalf? It's because that's what she told me. So I trusted her. So I've had a couple different scenarios where leaders above me, maybe 2 or 3 levels above me, have told me that they've communicated something and they didn't. So I guess the best advice I can give you is to advocate for yourself. Make sure that you're sending the message, that you're in the room, that you're having the conversation. Don't rely on other people because you cannot be sure that they're actually doing it for you. And ultimately that could hurt you, could hurt your brand and your perception. So speak up for yourself. I think it goes so much further when you do it.
Okay, so for leaders who are listening today, who may feel that their work is not fully recognized, what would you want them to be remembered?
I would say find a way to start to talk about what you are doing. So sharing facts, sharing information, speaking up in a meeting, volunteering to share it with people, having one-on-ones with influencers in the organization that need to know you and you need to know them, and just start to share the things that you're working on. Find ways to talk about your team and what your team is doing as well. You're the public relations for your team. So you need to make sure that you're getting that visibility for them too. But it really starts with conversations, quite honestly. I think that's the easiest way for someone who's just getting started.
This is my signature legacy question. This is Poonam's question, which is I asked every guest. And so if someone listens to this conversations years from now, and maybe a young professional trying to find their voice in the workplace, what do you hope they remember most about your leadership journey and your message?
That your voice matters, that you belong at the table, that you have something important to share, that you have unique qualities that are all yours, that people need to know, and you need to share them with them. Because if you're not sharing them, they're never going to see them. And that's a waste for you and for the organization. I don't want anyone to waste their potential. So find a way to have those conversations.
So, Suzanne, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your journey with us today. Conversation like this remind us that leadership is not just about the work we do, but about the influence we create and the people we help grow along the way. And to everyone who is listening, thank you for joining us on Beyond the Legacy. Until next time, keep leading with purpose, keep building a legacy that's beyond your title. Thank you.
Thanks.